Nice.
Go America, USA all the way. And we know, Tom, you're going to be coming here soon, so, you got to see Tom too.
Yeah, absolutely.
All part of being American, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, happy belated Independence Day for yesterday.
Yeah. Full disclosure. Yes. I tried to do the Jimi Hendrix thing. It didn't work out.
You're supposed to make some kind of comment. You're supposed to comment on Happy Independence Day, you traitors, or something like that.
So, we lost all our empire years ago. We haven't got anything left, so we're thankful just to be here, right?
We're just happy to be here. I just show up so I don't get fined. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I hear you. It's funny when you talk about Britain and America. I was, Tom Raftery, obviously,
Yeah.
And so, he does the sustainability, he does this supply chain thing. And I remember when I was giving my 2 cents about supply chain futures, and he was surprised. I talked about geopolitics as, being one of the biggest issues in supply chain stuff. And he thought that was unusual. And I said, well, I go for hundreds of years, Britain ensured the freedom of the seas, and the ocean is the world's largest supply chain highway. Yeah. And then at some point, Britain handed the baton to the U.S. to have its navy maintain the freedom of the seas. But then just added it in. There's lots of things you can point to happening in the Middle East, happening in the South China Sea, which is super disruptive to supply chains, and it's all about geopolitical things. And a lot of people go, why do you have a navy? Is that just for some big aircraft carrier battle? And it's like, no, it's actually primary goal is to maintain freedom of the seas for supply chain, lines to stay open so that goods can move freely around the world.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
Why they had the idea of merchant marines, right?
Yeah.
That's what merchant marines were. They used to escort convoys and trade ships and such, right? So prevent them from getting hijacked by pirates.
Those damn pirates.
Yeah,
exactly. Like Captain John Sparrow.
Yeah.
Or I'm the captain now. Look at me. I'm the captain now. Yes. The pirates off Somalia. There you go.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a real thing, right? It's a real thing.
So. It's a real thing. Yeah. Many tankers and ships have been boarded and stuff in Middle Eastern waters in the last few months. And so that's a thing. It's a real thing.
What was that film? Captain Phillips? Was it Captain Phillips?
Yeah.
That was a true story, right?
Captain Phillips. That's right. Yeah. Good times. Yes.
It is.
So what is going on with you, Mr. Five Values?
To be honest, do you know what? It's been really busy. I haven't been on in a few weeks, actually. And I keep seeing it come up in my calendar. And it's always overlapping with bits and pieces. I was like, finally I can turn up because loads of things going on. But things are good. Just really, really busy. Recording lots of podcasts. Did a great shoot yesterday with Matterport, the guys that do the kind of 3D digital twins and visualization of real estate and property, etc. Yeah, that was really cool. Really cool tech, actually. Speaking to loads of people and traveling a lot, right? So I think this month I'm going to Barcelona, I'm going to Italy. So it's been a whirlwind, to be honest with you, Rob. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's fun. That's fun.
Yeah.
I can tell.
It sounds. I was going to say it sounds all la-di-da, but it isn't, right? It isn't actually that glamorous. Right. It's I just made it out to be glamorous.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just make it out to be glamorous, like you're on Facebook. Yeah. I can tell that you've been living in the United States because you use the term calendar instead of diary.
Or he's preparing.
I'm mentally
Exactly.
preparing. So the visa is en route. So I'm saying niche. I'm not saying niche. I'm saying resume. I'm not saying CV. I'm saying gas.
Exactly.
I'm not saying petrol. So it's all coming along.
Now you got to fix.
Well, it's important to do.
Garage.
Yeah. Also, just remember, Tom. One of the Die Hard movies. That's how Bruce Willis knew that he was surrounded by a bunch of terrorists from Europe, is because he gets in the elevator and they all talk about going up on the lift. And that's how he knew. And then, of course, he quickly killed all of them in the elevator. And so it's important to make sure you say elevator and not lift.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't hide behind that accent.
That reminds me, do you know the film Inglourious Bastards? And do you know when they're in a bar and he says a German will never say three like that. A German will always go three.
The German always does this. You're right.
Yeah. And it's you know what, that is just more efficient, of course, right? So I don't
know, that kind of hurts, actually.
I think that was just a commentary. I think that was a commentary on German efficiency.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, but you're right. That's subtle things is how you get busted.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I completely forgot to mention. So talking of German efficiency, I was in Bonn last week at a conference about RDK. I think you guys might have saw it on LinkedIn, right? And so RDK is basically a Linux kind of system for OEMs to produce video content and broadband solutions. Mm-hmm. But it has a lot of premise for IoT. It has a lot of potential for IoT. And there was a talk around Matter, and there was a talk about what they were doing with some of the steering groups around Matter. And it was quite interesting. If you guys haven't kind of heard a lot about RDK or seen it, Comcast have it deployed on 110 million set-top boxes. And it's a really interesting kind of piece of tech, right? Which I think has a big future. I think has a big future in IoT, but no one was really talking about it that much.
Can you tell our audience what this stands for, RDK?
Reference Design Kit. So it's basically a standard to allow operators across the world to deploy a broadband solution or a video solution easier, quicker, with some kind of parameters and protocols of how to do it at a kind of base level, kind of firmware kind of basis, and then build up afterwards, right? The problem that a lot of operators have around the world is they're having to start from scratch all the time. And so ultimately the cost is therefore passed back to the consumer because they need this massive kind of integration, this kind of massive software build. But RDK is really interesting, and it's developing quickly. There was 200 people had a license about 5 years ago, and now there's 600 people that have a license. 600 organizations, shall I say. But the tech summit was cool, and there was a lot of people there from a lot of different companies, and I think it has potential in IoT, right? So it's an interesting piece of kit.
That's cool. That's good stuff. That's awesome. It's always fun to hear about new things.
Hey, Bill.
What's up, fellas?
How's it going?
How you doing?
Yeah.
Just it feels like it's a Monday, but it's not.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It does.
It does feel like a Monday.
Right?
Yeah. So much stuff to do. It's like ridiculous. Yeah.
I notice as we drive further north, closer towards Seattle, there's a growing amount of smoke in the air. So anyway.
Yeah.
Must be all those fires. We've avoided the fire smoke so far. The East Coast got it.
Oh wow, you can see it as well.
Yeah.
That's bad.
If I aim my iPad forward on the freeway there, I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, it's getting smokier and smokier as we head north from Oregon. So no bueno.
That's it's like almost like they don't bother putting out the fires anymore. They just let them burn. Yeah. It's just they're so overwhelming, and then they, if you're up in Canada, I mean, basically all the trees what do they call it? Is it black spruce or something like that? Basically, the way that they, they reproduce is through fire, right? The pine cones drop, and then fire is kind of like part of that whole life cycle of that species of trees, but they go up like matchsticks. At least that's what I learned when I drove up to Alaska, and I was like, yikes, and that's why you have these massive fires in Russia as well, right? Because it's basically a similar species of trees that just goes up like tinder. It's like,
I think you just gave us an idea for a science fiction novel where these creatures reproduce by fire.
That's what they do, right?
That's the first I've ever heard this before in my life. They reproduce through fire.
Yeah,
right?
They reproduce. That's part of the life cycle.
It's the circle of life.
Yeah, it's the circle of life. Fire. I don't know. Isn't that weird? You usually think water is an essential thing for life, but it ends up that certain what do you call them? Aren't they called coniferous trees?
Yeah.
Yeah, fire is an important part of their life cycle, And
there you go.
Interesting, So
you guys heard of Carsten from Dryad? So it's a German IoT business that do ultra early wildfire detection using IoT and sensors.
Yeah.
There's a few folks out there doing this kind of early detection.
Yeah.
There's a company in California as well, right? I can't remember the name of them. I spoke to them the other week, but it's critical, right? It's absolutely critical. This is,
It is. There's a lot of folks have gone after that space and doing fire detection. I've got a friend, Mike Waller. He works. It's a company's called Thingy. I know it sounds weird, but anyway,
that's the name.
Early days, they built fire detection stuff, and he's found most of his business, I'd say, in the last few years. He puts on these edge smoke devices. They do a bunch of other things besides that with all the wineries in Eastern Washington and then in Napa and Sonoma, California, because the wine growers they're terrified of this. They call it smoke taint, and so they use fires and smoking the grapes, in the vineyards, and then you taste the wine and it's not very good. And I've heard of a lot of wineries that literally had to pour out like an entire harvest, and they had to pour out and all of the wine and just would lose a whole season. They didn't burn up, but there was enough smoke in the air that negatively impacted the flavor of the wine. So
maybe
sucks. That's tough stuff.
Yeah, maybe they just use untoasted barrels, oak barrels.
There you go.
Yeah, you can skip the whole toasting process, and
there you go.
Or
but you're right with certain bourbons and whiskey, the smoke and the burning is a bonus.
Yeah,
it's something you're looking for.
Yeah, a lot of red wines, right? I mean, that's where you get some of the tannins, and
so who knew? So. Yeah, there you go.
That does suck. I mean, it screws up the process for sure, because you don't want to
have our act together for Mountain Connect.
Yes, we do.
Awesome.
So he didn't like Universe, huh?
No, he didn't like Universe. But if you look at, I think we still got a catchy title. So.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you should have negotiated something in the middle like Galaxy.
Yes.
I mean, we could have just called ourselves
a couple of levels that you could have worked with, Bill. I mean,
we could have called ourselves the Guardians of the Connected Galaxy.
All right, you need to contact Jeff immediately and tell him that's the title now.
Yeah,
that will get people going.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
That's what we need.
And
now.
And we're expecting they're going to fly us out there on Gulf Streams to this event. Is that how this is?
Yeah,
working?
the G8s will be there to pick us up, and
good.
G8s.
Good.
Nice.
Good. That's what everybody needs.
Yeah, you got to have that in your life, Otherwise, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well,
doing?
Our agenda is pretty interesting. You did a good job, Bill, of drafting that up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was our conversation.
You did a good job, but you just put a bunch of silly words on paper, and then we're still going to talk about whatever we want to talk about.
So this is Rob is a perfect example of why latency matters.
Yes. You saw that. He froze.
Yes. Yeah, that's what happens. You're on the freeway with your miracle 5G iPad. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, you don't have that fiber backhaul, so.
Nope. You know what? That's such a great point that you brought up, Bill. Just saying the fiber backhaul. A lot of people think 5G is some kind of magic thing, and they assume if you have 4 bars of 5G, everything is at speed. But that's just not the case. The RAN part might be working fine between you and the cell tower. You might have a rocking, awesome connection and high speed. But if you don't have good backhaul and can get it won't make any difference. And I experienced this. This week. We were in Bend, Oregon, kind of over the long weekend. And, sorry, T-Mobile. But, I had 4 bars of 5G ultra capacity. So it means I had the mid-band stuff. And yet my apps, everything would hardly load. And the answer to it's like, well, what's going on? Well, what's going on is no backhaul or crappy backhaul. And so just because you put the new kit up on a cell tower and say you got 5G doesn't mean you're going to have great speeds at all. And so I'm obviously thinking, well, I'm in central eastern Oregon on the other side of the mountains. And they probably don't have the money, or they just didn't spend putting tons of fiber and stuff like that out there in backhaul like you might have in a big city. And this will be like what we talked about at Mountain Connect. A lot of these remote places, a lot of people don't realize. They go, what are those? I've seen cell towers. What are these other strange radar or weird looking things? And it's a microwave repeater. And a lot of these remote areas, the only way they get any connectivity is microwave repeaters or bouncing things across mountaintops, because there's no fiber being laid through the Rocky Mountains.
They're still running E1s and T1s across that. So you've literally got 5G out, in a certain point, but no one talks about what we're going to talk about during Mountain Connect, the end-to-end piece of it. How do you architect this so that you are actually delivering that level of service that they're expecting?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so a lot of people are paying money expecting fast 5G, and they're super disappointed. Yeah,
well, I think they should get rid of the bars and replace the bars with 2 numbers. What's my download? Actually 3. Download, uplink, my downlink, my uplink, and my latency. Give me those numbers, and that'll tell me what I've got.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but that's tough, because even with like speed tests, when you run that thing, I mean, you're putting a lot of traffic through that cell site as well as your phone, right? That's the challenge, right?
But you don't have to do that. I think they do that kind of stuff, and it's not the smartest thing. Literally, you don't even have to perform deep packet inspection. All you're looking at is point A to point B. How many hops you're taking is what's going to introduce the latency.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Because like even with a speed test, you can pick the
server,
center, right? Yeah, the server.
Yeah.
Totally. So,
and when you find out that a small community of 10 or 20,000 people has backhaul of a T1 or a T3 or an OC3 or whatever, and it's like, oh, me and all my best friends are clogged on this tiny little line. I might as well just have dial-up. Yeah. Oh, pickup truck almost came into our lane. That's always fun.
Yeah.
All right. Good times. Bill, the way you said something about, the way you just talked about having to upload, and that's what I got, whatever. It almost sounded like you could do a Hamilton kind of rap type thing around that. No, like literally for a moment, it sounded like you were in Hamilton there. And so
that's awesome.
I think we should write up kind of a skit with a song or whatever that's like right out of Hamilton, but it has to do with
up on stage.
But has to do with cellular and backhaul and everything, and that's what we'll do at Mountain Connect. And we'll dress up like we're in the Broadway thing, you know.
No.
Well, let me be Chevalier.
I got my shot. Yeah, exactly. You know.
Yeah. That is a big challenge of having a big country with a lot of land and people, a lot of stuff in remote areas, you know. The cost of infrastructure and being able to provide a coverage, equitable coverage is super tough, right? You know, back a couple of years ago, 5G Americans was making a big deal about how Korea was able to very quickly get 5G coverage throughout the country, about 98% of the populated areas. And I remember telling a panel of CTOs, which included Neville Ray, actually, of T-Mobile. I asked them, so how many of you guys have been to South Korea? Right? And, you know, a couple of them raised their hands. Like, how many of you have been outside of Seoul, not being pampered by, you know, your handlers and, you know, staying at the best restaurants or best hotels and eating at the best restaurants, but going out in the sticks and seeing what the rest of the country's like? And nobody raised their hand. I was like, yeah. You know, before you get too excited about 5G and how quickly it's going to transform everyone's lives, and use South Korea as an example of that, you know, go and check out what the country is like. It's easy for them, and which is kind of like an advantage. It's almost like, you know, like transistor density on a chip, right? You know, Rick often says, "Hey, look, you know, they're too," you know, he's super anti-urban, but the thing is that a lot of the economies where there is like population density and they're able to scale that, they have a lot less. They have fewer challenges scaling out their digital infrastructure, right? Whereas in the US, we're so spread out and we have a lot of suburbs. Even in the suburbs, we can't even get really competitively performant connectivity and digital services, right? And so that's one of the big
just depends
that we have. Huh?
Yeah. And, you know, the alternative, the flip side is also true. You know, we're talking about 5G kit and bad backhaul.
Yeah.
You could also be a different kind of mobile operator that's only got LTE advanced, but awesome killer backhaul. And the experience for the customer might be better than 5G, actually. You know?
Yeah, it all depends. I mean, it entirely depends. You know, LTE probably in the US will likely be around a lot longer than, let's say, in China or South Korea, where they can make an economical case for full coverage and transition to 5G, but everywhere else it's just it's tough math, right? It's tougher.
Nothing happens fast. All this stuff costs money, and not everybody has all that money. And if they don't have the money, you're not going to get it.
And you got to get a return, right? You have to get a return. So like the big selling point for 5G should have always been, you know, you can increase the capacity and service quality of your network at the same, if not better, better economics, right? It makes sense because technology is always advancing, and Moore's law is always making compute and connectivity cheaper and cheaper per watt. But I mean, that's really the foundational value proposition for technology like 5G, right? Or the next generation of the network. So,
but I don't understand. I mean, so irrespective of whether it's 3G, 4G, 5G, 6, 7, 8, whatever we're going to go to, the process has always been the same, right?
No.
We keep doing the same thing and not even paying attention to the end result, right? So if they know definitively that we have a problem, like the urban sprawl is an issue, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
When you start looking at the ag areas, the rural areas, these quote unquote underserved markets.
Yeah.
Why would you not start your next generation there and move in?
Yeah.
Money.
Yeah. It's just the value is not there per square foot.
Yeah, but the technology isn't there per square inch.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, 5G is nothing without what we just said, the foundational backhaul. Work out your other issues over here while you're trying to help these agricultural areas and these other underserved communities get up.
Yeah.
The question comes down to is what's the cost of doing nothing?
Yeah.
The cost, it's a human cost. And it goes back to our focus of our group here, the digital divide. The cost is when we don't have people connected, we don't have young people connected to learn online, then it takes a whole toll on society over time.
Oh, big time. Yeah. Especially with Gen AI threatening to take everyone's jobs and making humans obsolete, right? Jeez, Yeah. And yeah, I mean, the digital divide problem, I think, it's a problem in a lot of places. UK, Tom, you're in the UK, right? Folks out always talk about that. Relatively speaking, the UK is a much smaller country than the US, but it seems to have a pretty big digital divide challenge, but also a lot more legacy infrastructure that you guys have to deal with and modernize. But Rob, you're right. I mean, in order to have good infrastructure, you need good infrastructure for the infrastructure, which is the backhaul, right? And so, the odd thing is everyone went bonkers with the 5G thing, but didn't look at like each market's readiness to support 5G with fiber. And it's like fiber was kind of like an afterthought. And now with Open RAN, you have to have fiber for your front haul, your mid haul, your back haul. And so there's all these, as you look at a more densified network, you need to have fiber, even more fiber running everywhere, connecting the actual RAN. And so like the problem of synchronization, time synchronization, all these like highly, you want to talk about ultra reliable, low latency stuff. It happens in the network, right? It's not even on the user plane. It's like the control plane. And you know what? How ready are we for that stuff, right? How ready are we for Open RAN?
You got to cut some people some slack there, Leonard. I'm going to allow them to have 10 gigabit Ethernet for their front haul. I'm not going to force them to have fiber. But this is the thing. This is actually what Bill and Leonard and I are going to be talking about at Mountain Connect next month is how do we do this and what is the cost? And so obviously the mobile operators, they didn't see any money in doing this. And so they just didn't do it. And now what's the big discussion topic now with the US, all the funding for broadband, this whole deal with just like rural electrification decades ago. It's like the only way it's going to happen is if the government, aka the taxpayers, pay for it, because it's not in the financial interest of the MNOs to do it, and so the government is going to have to do it so that every last farm, ranch, person living in a van in Alaska, whatever, has some kind of connectivity.
Well, I don't know, man. I think Blockbusters are going to come back to Blockbuster is going to come back and everyone's going to be running, DVDs and, buying DVD players again.
It might be cheaper to mail a USB stick with movies on it to Alaska than to try to have broadband deliver that same movie to those customers. I have to say, obviously, yes, in Bend, Oregon is where the final resting place, the last Blockbuster video exists there. And so my wife and I went there, and you'd be surprised. It's not just a museum. It's an active working Blockbuster. It has all the new movies are there, all new titles. They're still releasing them on DVD.
Oh, wow.
Everything. It's incredible, but it's also, and they do great business. Now, maybe part of the reason they do great business is out of nostalgia, because people are going there just to remember the past or something.
Yeah.
They have like a whole wall with VHS tapes, and they've got like kind of a artwork in VHS tapes, kind of thing like that. They have all the movie posters all over the walls, Pulp Fiction, all the cool stuff.
Yeah. Weekend at Bernie's.
Little banging your head while you're water skiing with Bernie there. Yep, I love that. I love that. That's always good. But you know what? It was pretty cool. And people, there's tourists, and they're like, "So what do I do?" And the people working there go, "Same as it always says. Just give us your credit card. We'll sign you up, for a rental, whatever." They're acting, and I'm sure it must annoy, or maybe they don't care, the employees there, because I'm sure they're just peppered with people who are like, "What is this place?
Yeah.
What do I do? How do I get a movie?
Can I use Apple or Google Play or Google Pay?"
Right.
No, we don't accept that here.
Employees are like, "No, same as it always is." The place looks and operates exactly the same.
Yeah.
Rob,
So
are you sure this place has not been created by Netflix just to record a documentary or something like that? Or how it used to be before themselves?
Oh my God, you might be right. It might be like those fake Apple stores in China. Yeah, you could be right.
No, but there's a real need. There's a real need for it, because there isn't connectivity out in a lot of places up in the Northwest and above. Yeah. It's like,
talking about connectivity. The problem is that you are not in Europe. In Europe, all of these would have been public funded by the European Commission.
Yes.
So there would be fiber everywhere.
Yeah.
We have fibers now in Spain in every village, tiny villages of 50 people. They have fiber, 1 gigabit per second.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe we should study what you guys are doing to help provide guidance to what the United States should be doing.
Why in the world would the U.S. ever consider that? That might just be considered smart.
Well,
I guess it seems counter-American to do anything that Europe does.
Hey, you guys need to be careful. This is the 4th of July episode, guys. You guys are playing with fire, like the kind that lit up Canada.
Wait a minute. If you're gonna call it the 4th of July episode, you need to have fireworks. I'm just saying.
Well, don't worry about it. You're gonna add it on later.
But I said Europe, not the UK. I said Europe. UK is not part of Europe.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I think we should dive into that discussion and stir the pot while we're at it.
So, Rob, what's the demographics at a Blockbuster these days?
The people in there or the movies?
The people that are coming in there to buy a VHS tape.
People who still have a VHS
machine
at home. Who has that?
There are a lot of people.
I think most of the people, I'm going to guess, I don't know for sure. We were there for 30 minutes. I'm going to guess it got at least 50%, if not everybody, was a tourist, because a lot of people like to go to Bend, Oregon in the summer. It's beautiful. I'm sure it's a novelty, and a lot of people go, "Oh my God, I heard," because when we pulled up in the parking lot, what did we see? People doing selfies in front of the Blockbuster sign just to show their friends that they went to one. So I bet you there's a lot of tourists inside the store going, "This is magic."
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many locals are actively using them, but I don't know, some percentage. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not answering your question, aren't I?
No, I believe that there had to be a lot of hippie vans and burned up RVs pulling into the parking lot.
You've obviously been there. Okay. Yes. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes. You've been to Bend. Yes.
Yeah,
there are a lot of the hippie things. Oregon is weird. And Bend is surfers and skiers. Am I frozen?
Yeah.
No, you're okay. The other alternative, and I talked about this, was when we're talking about high-speed digital downloads of movies, is that ATSC 3.0 option that exists that I'm in the middle of with Scripps and Nexstar. We met with some heavy hitters last week in Kansas City, of all places, and man, you're talking about 26 megabit downloads, gigabyte plans for very low amount of money of downloadable movies into Ford, and all the major carriers, all the major auto guys are looking at it for infotainment downloads of movies to have. So there is some alternatives if you can't get the broadband in those areas. All you got to have is TV signal.
Yeah,
it's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. There's.
Hey, now I'm in traffic on the 405.
No way. No way.
405.
Crazy. Yes. Not the San Diego freeway 405, but the one in Seattle on the east side. Yeah. Exactly. So just such fun. I'm loving it.
805.
And it's really
San Diego. 405 ends in Los Angeles, I think. Yeah.
But when you're in Los Angeles on the 405, it's referred to as the San Diego freeway.
Is it really? That's really.
Yeah,
you're right.
It's because you live in San Diego. It seems alien to you.
Yeah, yeah.
But for the Angelinos, they're like, "What is that distant small? What's that distant small community south of us? I think it's called San Diego. Maybe we'll go there one time and check out the beach or something." Or go look at an old aircraft carrier from World War II or something. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Or go visit one of the best engineering schools around, like UCSD. I mean,
ooh, UCSD for the win.
Oh, my alma mater. Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful school.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Really, really hard to study.
Beautiful.
Too many.
The views for the dormitory.
Pretty ridiculous.
That's like. It's almost like going to school in Pepperdine or something in Malibu.
Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, Leonard, I signed the lease, so I am going to be living in
no way.
Santa Monica, Sawtell, for at least a quarter of the year.
So the whole Vision Pro pitch didn't work.
Yes. Yeah. I'll be a 405.
Long story, guys. It's pretty funny though.
405 now. Come down to see Leonard.
Yeah, that'll be great.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a movie with Wesley Snipes where in the future the whole thing was called San Angeles?
Demolition Man.
Demolition Man. That's right.
Oh,
that's right. I love that. I love that
he's
movie.
a bad guy, right?
Yeah, my uncle owns like 50 acres on the east side of the fault line out in California, out in the Hitherlands. And he always said that, when he dies, the inheritance we're going to get is 50 acres on the San Andreas Fault. Like, that's going to be worse for me when it slides in. I'm going to have beachfront property in California. All right.
Living the dream, buddy.
Yeah.
San Andreas with the rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, I'm looking forward, awesome. Rob. We have our little IoT World Advisory little meeting, coming up.
Yes.
So it's going to be interesting for all of us to be able to at least point them in a direction that we want them in. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yes. I wonder if they want to be pointed in our direction or not.
Well, listen, it's better than the direction they're going on their own.
So is this the one by Pharma?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And now they're actually connected with South by.
Right.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So they're about to have some pretty pretty big events coming up.
Oh, cool.
Also means they're connected to Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah. So there's that.
Yes. And I just want to be on the agricultural side of that.
There you go. There you go. Bill, Mr. Ag Tech of the universe. He's abandoned smart cities and he's gone to the country.
Totally.
One plant at a time.
One plant at a time. Exactly. You know what? Let's talk about that for a second. So, I spent all this time doing the ag stuff out on farms, and at the same time, there's been people doing the indoor vertical farming and lots of great use cases. Obviously, still leafy greens, small things, not big things at a big production scale yet. And as I keep hearing, none of them are making any money. Lots of them are actually going bankrupt right now, which is really sad. And it's that kind of pioneer phase right now that they're trying this stuff out. The talk track is indoor farming. I can have lights on all the time, which means I can do 3 or 4 harvests per year rather than just one. I can have buildings closer to the cities, so I don't have to worry about the supply chain problems, have the food grown where the people live. So, now obviously it requires energy, electricity, and all that stuff, and they recycle water. I don't have to worry about pests and fungicides and all that. So there's a lot of good value there. We're still not to the point where we can do big crops yet. But as I see so much smoke in the air and we talk about so much of places on fire, I feel like there's maybe a national security element to this. If, I read articles, I don't know, I read random stuff, have you read stuff about how the jet stream is getting weird and it's causing drought and fires and then rains in weird places and everything? And so there's a lot of global worry about food shortages just because of whether it's climate change or the jet stream wiggling around and stuff like that. So you might get to the point back to where government might have to step in and fund things. It might be that indoor farming, or as they call the controlled environment agriculture, might become more and more of a necessity over time as the environment gets out of control and we can't control temperatures and all kinds of crazy stuff. And so it might be a thing, as I see all the smoke and fires all over the place.
Subsidized scenario, Rob, and that's the only way it survives?
Maybe. I don't know. It's still early. Yeah. It's still early days. The people who are trying it right now through private and they're doing VC funding, they're not surviving now.
No, they can't. There's not enough.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that the old way of doing things is just still much more economical, and it's really hard to challenge that. And I don't think we can do that just within the U.S. and make it a economically viable thing, because you still have other parts of the world. Because we have to remember we have a global food supply chain. We depend on South America for a lot of our fruits and
fish and sea bass and
during the winter, right, and vice versa. So if they continue to pursue the cheapest option, you continue with that until some form of disaster or realization that this is contributing to disaster. But then, it's the brownfield problem, right? And why digital transformation is so difficult. This is the old way of doing. Sometimes it just works. Number one, it just works. And okay, sure, it's not 6 Sigma, it's 5 Sigma. But, what is it going to cost for us to get to 7 Sigma, right?
Nobody knows what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Just to complement on the European side of this, 80% of the food here is as well subsidized by the European Union.
Yeah.
So, it's a big problem. And actually this year here in Spain, we had a really dry winter. So they decided that, so we just leave most of the fields in those regions to die because we don't have enough water.
Yeah.
And we will pay for that with public money. And for me, the main problem is the water, right? So the water is probably the only thing that it's really hard to produce in high quantities in places far away from the sea.
And that's why I love the warehouse farming or container farming, because you're basically recycling the moisture that's coming out of the air inside those containers. But, Rob, one of the things that we did in Atlanta, we did a huge project with the Metro Chamber of Commerce and other places to put container farms inside the inner city, along the Beltline and other areas. And the regulations from the city council and some of those made it just such a hard thing. A lot of it was a lack of education on their part. But the idea of trying to bring the food into the neighborhoods that need the food, in a way of being able to produce 3 times a year into an abandoned warehouse or abandoned building, man, the city regulations they don't match up to the reality of what's needed.
That's too bad. It feels like there's a parallel with our earlier discussion about getting broadband to underserved areas in inner city, along with food.
Yeah.
People wait till their house is on fire in this country before they do anything.
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. It's like you can see things coming. You can see it coming in the distance towards you, and you can have time to prepare. And people just don't do it, or they may talk about doing it, but they don't do it.
Yeah. Why anyone can think on long term? Why any politician comes with a long term vision of anything?
It goes back
really sad, right?
It goes back to and Bill sees this a lot in the smart cities and smart communities. I mean, these guys will be, they have the guts in a meeting or in a public setting to say, if you bring me smart cities, it better get me reelected. If not, I don't give a shit. I mean, I've heard it from so big city makers that have said that, and city council people. It's pretty sad when you start to look at it, strictly from that standpoint, not as a benefit to the citizens that are paying for it anyway.
Right.
I mean, the value proposition has to be sold as a bottom line benefit, and it's a really tough one to arrive at. A lot of the top line stuff is just all hypothetical. It's an exercise, right? And somebody has to pay for that exercise. It takes a lot of data crunching and analysis and strategy development to come to the table with something that's going to deliver that benefit, right?
And it's interesting because we all look at rural broadband in a technical way, right? For all of us, it's like, oh, that's so cool. We got to get it out there. It's going to be great. Then I remember when the infrastructure bill was being passed, some politician said, oh, that's great. We're going to get rural broadband in the middle of nowhere, and the porn is going to go up. It's like, so you're equating the broadband in rural areas to, people using it for porn access. Okay, you can't fix it,
Well, I mean, he made the statement, so I think he was speaking for himself.
Yes.
Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, though, right? When you look at that, it is, Steve. You're right. It's sad that it gets wrapped around the political part of it. When in actuality, and I mean, we've all kind of said this, right? Smart city itself is going to be different city to city.
Yeah.
Because they just are not the same. And we've got to rise above the lower level tech. Everything from layers 1 through 6 really should be what it is. But layer 7, that whole presentation layer, how the citizens see it, how they interact with it, how the services are delivered, all of those things should be the same. I don't want to see it driven by the politics at all.
But I mean, it's still about this, though, Bill. How the hell you get away with it? You can't get around it.
Well, I mean, look, the other part about it is, and you can't get around it, but I think bringing attention to those things, right? Bring awareness. to those things. It's almost like we should be doing that. If we're not doing that, then shame on us.
Yeah.
But we should be absolutely unequivocally telling the truth about what the hell's going on and why things aren't happening the way they want. I can have two cities, which will be nameless, but at the beginning, they will tell me, this is what we want. You're the expert. We want to learn from you. And I'm like, first off, I'm not an expert. I'm a student of technology, but I will help you get there after we define what the outcome needs to be, what the benefits are, and everything like that. We go through this whole exercise. All they really wanted was for the consultant to deliver their message, because everything that I told them they should do, they were like, yeah, no, we're not interested in that. We just want you to go and say this.
Right. It's funny. I had this exact same conversation with Benson Chan on Monday. Same conversation. It's unbelievable. It's all over the place in the smart community city area.
Yeah. But yeah, you can solve everything with middleware. So even at level 7. So if you're talking about infrastructure, having common infrastructure, middleware everything together, and all the tenants and thingies that connect to it and leverage the services, they have a layer and it's all.
I think next year
the same.
I think next year Bill will say that the layer 12 is the one that it's like Fast and the Furious. Every year there is
I love it.
Yeah, you're right.
But it's true. True. It's systems on top of systems, right? And so you have more than 7 layers. You have I think
7-layer dip.
Yeah.
7-layer chocolate cake.
It's all a bunch of cake.
I gotta drop. I gotta go to the next call, guys. It's good chatting this morning.
Yeah. Okay. So hey, happy 4th. And thanks to everyone who's made it this far. Tom, thanks for jumping on. We missed you. You didn't say much, but next episode you are going to have the burden. And we hope everyone who is in the US who watches our show had a safe 4th. And remember to subscribe, like, react at www.iotcoffeetalk.com. And don't forget about our collective mission to bridge the digital divide. And so make your donation to Elevate Our Kids at elevateourkids.org. And if you aren't into charity, you can buy an IoT Coffee Talk t-shirt, and all proceeds will go to Elevate Our Kids. And you can do good and look good. So we will see you next week. All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.